Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Esteemed scholars, mothers and sisters, brothers, and those who would be listening and viewing. The topic is before you, reclaiming the Muslim mind in the age of algorithms. That's where I want to start. Where's the new battlefield? It's the battlefield for hearts and minds, which is a digital battlefield. And it is fought through feeds, not through swords, or not even through guns and bombs. The most powerful entity on earth today is what? Not a political one, not an economic one, not even a military one. It's the one that can tell stories that people believe. Politically, militarily, you can capture lands, you can capture property. But we live in an era where there has been a significant escalation in the quest to capture the hearts and minds of people. Our focus is, and rightfully so, on what's happening in Palestine and Sudan and other places in the world. But think for a moment, as devastating as it is there, the victims actually, in the greater scheme of the akhirah, are in a position of advantage. If you lose your property, Allah will reward you. If you lose your life, you've got the lofty rank of a shaheed and a martyr. So the victims of the political quest and the economic quest and the military quest and battles are actually in a position of advantage in terms of the year after. But when it comes to the victims of the battle for the hearts and minds of people, at best, they suffer a diminished sense of Muslim identity. At worst, it could lead to intellectual apostasy, where you are Muslim on the outer, but internally you have been totally hollowed out. You no longer have those core values and you no longer identify with the fundamentals of Islam. So the battle for the hearts and minds of people is a greater challenge for the Ummah than those battles where the Ummah is being targeted due to land or due to property or for economic or political or economic reasons. And that's a fundamental point that I want to share with you today, because the victims of the battle for the hearts and minds of people are far worse off in this world as well as in the year after than the victims of a genocide, of occupation. And I'm not in any way diminishing the extent of the responsibility that the perpetrators must carry and the extent of the difficulty that the victims they are having to endure. You see, in the end, whoever controls the narrative controls perception. Whoever controls the narrative controls perception. And whoever controls perception controls the moral direction of humanity. Slowly but surely, even those definitions that were concretized are being deconcretized, and the waters have become very muddied. Whose definition of justice? Whose definition of democracy? Whose definition of what is right is the world currently following? And where is that battle being fought? In the digital space. So our beliefs are shaped by those who control the code. Here's a few quick stats in passing. Six corporations control 90% of the media in the US. And by what happens in the US, there's a global extension. Algorithms amplify falsehood at a rate 64% faster than it amplifies truth. 54% of people today consume news after it has been filtered by algorithms. So they're not just reporting, they're engineering. Those who control the narrative are not just reporting, they are engineering. When we had last week the UXA meetings, I was asked to speak about who controls the narrative. I said there's a long answer and the short answer. The short answer is we don't control the narrative. The longer answer is what it is. It's a different topic. But the reality is we don't control the narrative. And if someone else is controlling the narrative, and the narrative is disseminated via the digital space, then they're not just reporting, they are engineering. So taking cue from what Brother Ismail had said, what does building Medina mean in this era? The reason I was invited here today is that in Ramadan, I was invited here to Islamia Masjid, and I delivered a talk that became afterwards known as the SWOT analysis Jummah talk. It generated quite a bit of discussion, but that was the intention. And I mentioned that the intention was to stimulate talk. It wasn't to be comprehensive, it was to start the discussion. And I did a SWOT of where we are as a Muslim community, in my opinion. And many people identified with that, including Ismail. And he said, come and take cue from that SWOT, because we need a SWOT of where we are in the tech space. So, that brings me then to the next slide. In my SWOT, I'm not going to go through that entire Jummah talk. I normally say when we're at events that, Muslims preach on Fridays, not on Saturdays or Sundays. So don't go into Jummah Bayan mode. But we all know, right? We have significant strength here in South Africa in terms of religious infrastructure. Masjids, ulama bodies, madrasas, darul ulooms, Muslim schools. We've got media freedom in our country. But what does all of this tell us? Is it our achievement? No. It's the achievement of our forefathers. They had vision. They had a plan. They had dedication. They had sincerity. So we are benefiting from their planning, from their vision, from their efforts, from their sacrifice. Abdul Khalik will tell you, last week here, UXA hosted a host of scholars from across the globe. And as much as they heard about South Africa, when they finally came to South Africa, they were blown away with the extent of the religious infrastructure that we have. But they were also honest in their criticism in terms of where we're falling short. And I'm not going to go through the list, but wherever they identified an area we were falling short, it's something that had to do with our generation. And wherever they identified a strength, it had to do with the previous generation. And that's the point that I want to emphasize. That our weaknesses today, if we have to look at it, is where we have lost sight of what our vision has to be. Where we have lost sight of where the world is moving and why it's moving and how rapidly it's moving. Our strengths really are the achievement of our forefathers. Perhaps we have grown it somewhat, perhaps we have enhanced it, embellished it somewhat. It's not all gloom, but they say great leaders are more aware of their weaknesses and shortcomings than they are boasting about their strengths. And we are all leaders here in this particular room. So, the great weakness today is that we continue to replicate what our forefathers did and invest more in bricks and mortar, even when it's not necessary, and we're not investing in a space that's moving so fast that it will leave you so far behind. I mean, all the examples are before us. The Nokia example, the BlueBerry example. You just go to sleep for a short period of time and you don't face being left behind, you face extinction. I mean, who's sitting with the BlackBerry here today? No one. Who's here with the Nokia? No one. And those were monopolies in the market. So as a Muslim community, if we don't wake from this digital slumber very quickly, it may become very difficult for us to catch up, let alone for us to lead. I'll give you a personal example. Some of you may be aware of this. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Sri Lanka to attend a Muslim school conference. And just as the conference is starting, I'm on WhatsApp, chatting with my wife, and a notification pops up on the screen. You have violated the terms and conditions. This number is banned and no longer able to be used on WhatsApp. I'm like, what is this? Has somebody hacked me? Right? Because that's what's happening. But I've got all the two-pin verification and everything. So I quickly go into the Mufti, the Grand Mufti of the globe today, ChatGPT, and I ask him, what's happening here? He says, you violated the terms of conditions. So I go, read up the terms of conditions. I didn't violate anything. I'm not advocating crime. I'm not advocating this, that, anyway. So you can appeal it in the app. I appeal it. They restore it 6 hours later. They ban it again. I appeal it. They restore it 12 hours later. 5 days, no problem. They ban me again. I appeal it again. Then they ban and they say permanent. No appeal. And I'm shaking mad. I don't know what I do. I'm using this number for as long as WhatsApp is in existence. It's linked to my number that I've had for 25 years. Everyone only has that number. So I put in a manual appeal for human review, and it's 4 weeks later, and I'm still banned. So most people, I met a brother as I was coming in, I know him very well. Mom, I'm messaging you from yesterday, I heard you're coming to Cape Town, you're not responding. I said, I can't respond, thanks to Meta. Now here's the point I want to get to. So somebody said to me, just move on, go to Signal or go to Telegram or do something else. I said, you see, my personal issue and challenge is one thing, but it's reflective of a deeper symptom. We are 2 billion Muslims, but we don't have our own platform for communication. So I can move on to any other platform, but the people I'm communicating with, if they are not on that platform, it doesn't serve my purpose. The app on my phone is designed by someone else. The technology of the phone is designed by somebody else. The network for the phone is designed by somebody else. So we move on to the Medina blueprint, right? When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to Madinatul Munawwara, he built a masjid for spiritual fortification. He built a marketplace for economic independence. Today we need technological independence more than any other independence. Because 2 billion of us are dependent on somebody else's platform. There's a sheikh who will be speaking here, his YouTube channel was taken down. We are dependent on somebody else's platform. So independence and truth cannot be secured if you're on somebody else's platform. We need a digital Medina with ethical systems of media and communication. Because what's happening with the algorithms? The algorithms decide what we see and what we don't see. Algorithms are not neutral. It's a coded worldview. And it's somebody else's worldview. See what is happening with regards to Palestine. Shadow banning. Now after the so-called ceasefire, tech scrubbing. Removing all content that is reflective of the genocide that Israel has perpetrated. So what's happening in the digital space is the perpetrators of genocide are rewriting history in real time. They're rewriting history in front of the people who witnessed the history. And there's nothing we can do about it. Because we are dependent in the digital space, we are not independent. To become independent, we need Muslim ethics. You see, they say, listen very carefully to this. I like this statement when I heard it. If you want to defend the truth, you must first learn to design the truth. If you want to defend the truth, you must first learn to design for the truth. Because how do you defend the truth via somebody else's platform when that platform has been designed to distort the truth? It's not adequate for us now in this age to just speak the truth. We have to speak the truth in platforms which have been designed for the dissemination of the truth in the language of the truth. So hence I have that reflection there. Are we building the tools of truth or are we using tools that distort it? The bottom line is this. We can't be fighting narratives all the time. We need to be forging narratives. We need to be leading the narratives. This ummah is an ummah which is solution orientated. We're not pessimistic, we're optimistic. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went through many difficulties, he never was pessimistic. There's always a way out. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. It can start right here in South Africa. When those scholars came from across the world, they said this is the place that can be the catalyst. Because we've got freedom. We don't have to worry about being picked up in the middle of the night because of what we put up on social media. We have to worry about Meta blocking us and others doing techno scrubbing. We've got talent, we've got intellect, and we've got ethical innovation. What we need to do now is build Muslim-owned media and digital waqf projects. We need ethical AI think tanks, not that are sustained by compromised advertisers who are pushing their agenda, but are sustained by contributions that are neutral at worst and at best that want to advocate the values of Islam and the values of justice. We need to teach our children how to not only code. Now it's a big thing. Muslim schools are teaching robotics. Wow, okay. That's the science part of it. What about the ethical part of it? I say something always. Allah does not condemn dunya. Allah condemns hayatud dunya. Allah does not condemn worldly sciences or worldly professions. Allah condemns it if you make that your objective. But if you pursue dunya for the sake of akhirah, not only is it permissible or recommendable, it is wajib and compulsory. We need men and women in the digital space who will be coding not only for their careers or for promotions, but who will be coding for the sake of the ummah and who will be coding for the sake of humanity. From the masjids, we as ulama need to take responsibility now about advocating tech literacy, about promoting tech waqf as a charitable cause. Quick anecdote I share with you before I conclude. I'm the station manager at Radio Islam. I'm also the chairman of a masjid. I go in Ramadan to a man in my community for collection every year. When I walk at his door, hey Maulana, Radio Islam, such fantastic work. Whole day it's on, we've benefited, we've learned. The whole time I sit there, he doesn't talk one word about the masjid. He only talks about Radio Islam. When he gives me his contribution, the amount for the masjid is 4 times greater than the amount for the radio. Because we're still stuck in that paradigm that those are only ways. I'm not saying don't give the masjid. Those are the only ways of contributing. So last slide. What are the key takeaways? We need to channel charity into tech and media waqf. We need to train our youth and ourselves into ethical AI coding and storytelling. We need to build independent Muslim communication platforms. See, Allah says in the Quran, وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Prepare to the best of your ability. Today, we need to prepare to the best of our ability in the digital space. Otherwise, we'll continue to remain dependent and others will continue to dictate terms. I'll conclude with this. We need narrative builders. We need platforms that are based on values and justice. And no one else is going to give it to us if we don't produce it for ourselves. My concluding thought is this. I've been saying this almost every talk I've given for the last 2 years, since October 7th. What is the reason that we find ourselves in such a pitiable situation as Ummah? What's the reason? It's not numbers. In Badr, numbers was a challenge. In Uhud, numbers, we are 2 billion and counting. It's not resources. Muslim countries in the world today are not short of any resources. So why? Why is it that our numbers don't count? 2 billion of us can't rescue 2 million who are suffering genocide. Why is it that our resources don't count? I'll tell you why. Because in every science and in every field, others are leading, we are following. The consequence of that, they are independent of us, we are dependent on them. Now when we want to use our numbers or use our resources, they scrub the technology, they block our platforms, they shadow ban us, they politically orchestrate a coup. If you're a leader who tries to stand up for the sake of justice, we have straight-jacketed ourselves, not others have done it. Because we went to sleep as an ummah. We forgot that ukhrijat linnas, we have been taken out to serve humanity in every field, on every front. We've become selfish, individualistic, petty, inwardly focused. My interests, my dunya, my priorities. So everyone else has progressed. They are independent of us, we are dependent on them. So they leading for their agenda and we having to follow. When, you see, there's no quick fix here, there's no band-aid. I close on this. The only solution for the ummah to prosper is that in every science and every field, we need men and women who will pursue dunya for the sake of akhirah, who will excel with ihsan. And when we start leading in every science and every field, especially in the tech science and field, then we will become independent of others and they will become dependent on us. But when Muslims lead, we don't lead with selfish values. We lead with the values of Islam. So our careers will prosper. Our communities will prosper. The ummah will prosper. But humanity will also prosper. And then we live up to that Quranic definition. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. May Allah accept me for that cause. May Allah accept us all. May Allah grant us the hidayat and guidance. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad.